What up? What up? Salvador Briggman here. Welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Hope that you're having a great week thus far. And I got a question for you, man. I got a question. Are you interested in figuring out what actually goes into a $1 million Kickstarter campaign? Yes, I'm talking about a Kickstarter campaign that raised over $1 million from more than 11,000 backers. What if you could discover exactly what goes into a project like that? The strategy, the techniques, the advice of a creator who can kind of just tell you what they did in order to be successful. What would that be worth to you? What would you value that at? Because that's exactly what we're going to be talking about on today's podcast episode. We brought on $1 million crowdfunding creator who, get this, they've launched 24 Kickstarter campaigns. So for those of you out there like, Sal, it's so hard to run a crowdfunding campaign. Sal, is this worth my time? It sounds like a lot of work, right? Well, think about this. It's not just about a one-off kind of projects. And some of you, maybe if you have a physical product, you have something you're trying to do that's more like a hobby related. Maybe you're just trying to do a one-off project. But so many of my students nowadays, they're trying to really actually understand the engine of crowdfunding. They're trying to understand the actual framework that goes into launching one of these campaigns. And that's because they know they've been listening to the show for a while, and they know that I have people on all the time who have run 10 Kickstarter campaigns, 15 Kickstarter campaigns, in this case, 24 Kickstarter campaigns. And what it does is it actually becomes an engine for your business. It becomes a really unique way that people can discover you. It becomes a way that you engage your crowd, and particularly for people as well in the board game industry. I think that this is a tried and true backbone of any kind of board game business. And even if it's more of a card game, artistic in nature, any kind of creative projects that are out there, or even a physical product, you see people launching 5 campaigns, 6 campaigns, right, for their actual product. So you need to think bigger. It doesn't really cost anything to dream big. And I would say that one of my biggest dreams for you is that you take the knowledge, you take the things that you're investing in right now when it comes to listening to my podcast, reading my book, The Kickstarter Launch Formula, which you can check out on Amazon or on Audible, going through my newsletter, going through my free courses, etc., discovering me on YouTube, like all that kind of stuff. You take the information and the teachings that I'm sharing, and this is kind of one of those things where it's like, I'm not just trying to teach you, how to go fishing one time. I'm really trying to teach you how to create a whole fishing farm, right? I'm trying to teach you how to actually systematize this so this can become a repeatable part of your business. So even if you're just interested in doing one-off, that's great. But for those of you out there that have a bigger vision of building a massive brand, getting attention, getting traffic, launching multiple products, maybe multiple ideas that you have, when you invest in understanding this body of work, this knowledge, you will be able to launch multiple campaigns the same way that today's creator did. And some of those campaigns might be for bigger numbers, some of those might be for smaller numbers. But if you actually take the things that we're talking about, take these teachings, take these golden nuggets and apply it, I'm telling you, the world will open up. There's a world of opportunity out there. I think that this is a huge truckload of information that you're going to get delivered today. And also, one of the things I would say is that if you're not doing this, if you're not actually taking action on this, you are literally just flushing this opportunity down the toilet, because other people are being successful. Other people are having repeat success on this platform. Why not you? There's literally nothing that is stopping you. So I went on a little bit of a tangent there. I got a little bit excited. But that being said, I just got one quick link for you. If you want to go and check out the Kickstarter launch formula, I'm going to link up right now the Audible version. There's a deal now where you can actually get a free copy of the Kickstarter launch formula. So if you ever wanted a free copy of my book, you can do that on Audible. All you got to do is go to this link I'm about to mention and sign up for Audible. And you also get a free copy of my book, The Kickstarter Launch Formula. So go to this link at crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. That link is crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio, crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. I don't know how long they're going to do this promotion, guys, but they are super awesome when it comes to, helping more people, help more creators like myself get our work out there. So they are doing this promo where you can get a free version of the Kickstarter launch formula. Go and check it out there at crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. Let's get into today's episode without further ado, and let's learn how this creator launched a $1 million campaign and how they've been able to do 23 other projects as well. If you're worried about the fulfillment and shipping part of your Kickstarter campaign when it comes to getting out all those perks and rewards to your backers, rest assured, I've put together a complete Kickstarter fulfillment and shipping checklist for you, and it's free. This is sponsored by the folks at Fulfillrite, and they thought that you should have this checklist as part of your arsenal going into a crowdfunding campaign. If you want to get instant access to this checklist and it's free, you can go to fulfillrite.com/checklist. Again, that is fulfillrite.com/checklist. Fulfillrite.com/checklist. Just go to that link and you can download it immediately. Hey guys, welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Hey, we have an incredible success story on the show, having recently done a campaign for over $1 million, more than 11,000 backers, and really an illustrious history here when it comes to games and different projects that have been launched. We're talking with David from Level 99 Games, and I'll let him tell you more about his project. David, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
For those of you who don't know you in the audience, you think you can just kind of share with them a little bit about you and some of your history here with crowdfunding?
Yeah, sure. So, Level 99 Games, we've been doing this for about a decade now. We started back in 2012 with our very first project, BattleCon War of Indians. And this was a head to head fighting, dueling card game. And it was sort of right after the Great Recession in 2008. I struck out on my own to be a contractor. I did a couple video games, iOS games, some mercenary programming work, and but my around the 2010s, I saw Kickstarter coming up, and I looked on there and I saw board games going on, and I was like, "Well, I've always loved board games," and I thought, "Well, maybe I could try this. Maybe I could try my hand at that." And I was making games as an amateur hobbyist back then. And I said, well, maybe I'll try and go pro because I'm not enjoying the programming work. So I put up my current project that I was working on, my amateur project, and lo and behold, it funded, and it was the start of everything.
How has your life changed from then when you were doing this other kind of job, just kind of dipping your toes in this to now? How has your life look different?
I have learned everything about managing a business, about managing staff, about managing the project and the financials and expectations, all that from experience and scratch and reading on my own. I don't have a formal education in business, and so I've had to do a lot of self study and pick it up as I've gone. So going from me sitting in my home office building prototypes on the floor, now we have a an office space here in Albuquerque with a warehouse with 5 team members that come every week, and a couple more remote around the world. It's definitely grown from just a passion project into a real career for many of us, and so it's a lot of responsibility, but it feels good. It's really exciting to be part of something that's bigger than just myself, and I think that's the most positive change over the years, is that Level 99 has come to mean so much to so many more people besides just me.
How would you say that you as an artist has changed? Or I don't know if you would view yourself as an artist, right? How have you changed as a game designer or as someone who's putting out board games and tabletops? How's that changed?
Yeah, well, I think it's a really good point. I feel like game design is an art form, but it's a technical art form. It's a lot like programming, or the what I compared the most to is actually like movie or TV. You have to balance the big vision of the project with the realities of production, with the talents of your team, and with the expectations of the market, and all these things together. So it's really a very, let's say, creative entrepreneurial enterprise, and it's a lot of fun.
I mean, obviously, you guys have been doing so many of these. I mean, I was looking at your profile. It looks like you guys have created 24 games on Kickstarter. I'm sure you've done a
Yes.
bunch of other ones as well behind the scenes that maybe didn't even make it to the light, right?
Yeah, well, we've done a lot of direct releases. We've done releases for other companies. So we actually did design work for like Jasco Games, Street Fighter Exceed, and Mega Man Pixel Tactics. We've done a bunch of direct releases of our own, and we've done releases through our online store. We have our own launch program called Launch 99, which is basically Kickstarter without Kickstarter. It's for games that we know we're going to produce. We don't crowdfund, we just offer them to people, and you can get the kind of the worldwide shipping options that a Kickstarter
Mhm.
would normally give you if you pre-order the games.
Exciting, exciting.
Yeah, but we've done 20 Kickstarters, over 20 Kickstarters, like you mentioned, and it's definitely been our bread and butter. And we've learned a lot. We've learned a lot, and we've learned a lot the hard way in our
Yeah.
Kickstarter projects.
So I do want to ask you that in just a little bit, but maybe we can first kind of give some context here with your most recent project. Can you tell the listeners just a bit about it and the kind of style of game that it is?
Yeah, Dead by Daylight is the original property is a video game. It's sort of a museum of horror. So this is a horror game. One player controls a killer. Up to four other players control survivors, and you're trapped together, the five of you, in this randomly generated labyrinth. And The survivors have to find and power up generators so that they can open this big mechanical exit door to escape the labyrinth. The killer is trying to chase them down, attack them, and once the survivors are knocked out, pick them up and hook them on these big sacrificial hooks that are, yeah.
Cool.
And once you hook the survivors, you summon this mysterious Chthonian entity that takes them out of the trial and rewards you for your service. So it's an asymmetric multiplayer game, and it's got a ton of tactics, a ton of variable content, and it's a game that we, as the level 99 staff, really enjoyed playing and had a lot of fun diving into the video game.
Mhm.
So from there, we reached out to Behavior Interactive, who are the company that produces Dead by Daylight, and we said we'd like to do a miniatures board game and bring this to life on the tabletop. And so from there, things just moved along, and I have to say, the team really did an amazing job. Normal turnaround on a board game is like 24 months, and they managed to put this whole thing together and get it press ready in under 12 months. So it
Jeez,
was, yeah, we were all working overtime to make this happen, and the team really put in an amazing effort. I think
that's
there's a lot of
insane.
passion in this project.
Yeah, congrats on that. That's a very aggressive timeline. And I think it's really interesting, the fact that you're kind of building off of an existing IP or an existing game that people are loving. And even just looking through the project, like the artwork you have, it literally looks like you're about to dive into a video game, right? And just like the gifts and the way that things are moving, it looks so exciting and fun to play.
Yeah, it was actually quite a, I don't want to say easy, but definitely a very straightforward transition, because so much of the macro strategy of the video game translates so well to board games. And we felt that level 99 was uniquely positioned to do this game, because we have a really strong history of asymmetric games and of games that have strong character identities. And so if you look at our lineup, from BattleCon to Argent to Millennium Blades, the first thing you do at any level 99 game is you pick your character. And every character has some unique powers and some their own strategy for how they're going to play the game. And that fits right in with Dead by Daylight.
To kind of also just break this down, when you refer to that term asymmetric game, what are you referring to exactly?
So in an asymmetric game, and it's a sliding scale, right? So on the one hand, you have characters with different power. You pick one character, I pick another character, and our characters interact with the world differently. In a true asymmetric game, not only do we have different sides, but we have different rules. The survivors and the way that they interact with the world and the way that they win the game is completely different from the way that the killer interacts with the world and the way the killer wins the game. And so really what you have is these two teams playing different games on the same that play off of each other's positions. And it is a zero sum, the killer wins or the survivor wins. But the ways that they're going about it and what they're trying to do are completely different.
Interesting, interesting. It almost kind of mirrors real life in a creepy way as well, which is interesting. You obviously have different characters and different motivations that are there. When you're thinking this through, obviously it's a little bit easier when you're working off of existing IP. When you're creating your own games, how does that kind of start? Are you looking at, oh, this would be an interesting story? Do you usually start with characters? Where does the imagination process kind of begin with you?
Yeah, so we have a pretty detailed design process, and it's pretty well documented internally. And when we are building a game, what we think about first and most importantly is the experience that that game is going to deliver to our players. So, how do you want to feel after you play this game? And that's what we target first. Secondly, we think about the sort of the surrounding presence of the game. How many people are going to be there? What's their gamer skill level going to be? How focused do they want to be on the table? And how long is that whole experience going to last? Things that support those factors together sort of give us the skeleton of the kind of game we want. But from there, we dive into the process of like making sure the right user experience, that it's the right amount of accessibility, easy to learn, easy to teach, quick to set up and break down. Our bottom line goal when we make a game is, if we play 100 games of this, how many of those are going to successfully deliver on the experience target that we set? And we keep track of that. Every game we poll every player and say, did this game deliver not just a good experience, but this specific experience? And we want to get that number to 19 out of 20, about 95% of the people who play this game achieve the target experience.
I love that and the framework that you're putting that through, and it's almost bringing like almost a organized, objective sense to something that's a little bit more creative, right? And working within those constraints to deliver something that's going to make you happy and also make backers happy, right?
And like I said, it's a creative technical discipline. I think
Yeah,
you can't just focus on the art side of things. You really have to think about the players, because players complete the game. The game is, it only exists in the mind of the players. Anything you create, it's their interpretation that's going to ultimately determine what your game is.
100%. And one follow-up question I had for you is, you mentioned launching games privately versus on Kickstarter. Do you feel like there are any kinds of elements of that, whether that's easy to play or aimed at sophisticated or new players and gamer skill level that really lend well to crowdfunding? Is there a reason why you bring certain games to Kickstarter versus those that you release privately?
Yeah. So for Dead by Daylight, we had a couple different options to select. We could have launched it directly. We could have gone with an alternative platform like Indiegogo or GameFound. I mean, we chose Kickstarter because we felt that Kickstarter had the best brand name recognition, and we knew that most of the people who would be coming from video games. So we wanted to give them a website that they had probably seen in the news, had probably heard of from a friend, probably saw a lot of other highly anticipated games coming through, other video game board game crossovers. And so that's why we chose Kickstarter. And indeed, we saw that for this project, Dead by Daylight, upwards of 40% of our backers were first time Kickstarter users.
I mean, that's actually pretty rare. I would think also with the board game niche, right? That you'd have a lot of even an overwhelming number from the platform itself. But it sounds like you brought in a lot of new people as well, which is exciting. And those people also go on to back other projects as well.
Yeah, that's true. Although I really want to say that the licensor brought in a lot of projects. Working with Behavior Interactive, they brought their whole media team in to talk with us, to help us to share the message about this, and they were on board with this game. They didn't want this to just be a one and done. They want this to be a product that's going to be around for 5 and 10 years down the line. And so making the launch really successful and making it something that there was a success we could build on was really important to them. And I think that made them a great partner to work with. And having worked with a lot of licensing partners, it was a really special experience working with Behavior Interactive.
Got it. Got it. Having done a lot of these different projects and also having learned and kind of put together your own systems, is there a lesson or two that you feel like you could share with the audience? Maybe something that was difficult to learn or an accompanying story with that? Do you have any lessons that come to mind for people out there that are trying to do projects from what you've accomplished here?
Yeah, I would say that there is a lot of hype around sort of the Kickstarter and board game culture. Let me do stretch goals, let me do a bunch of add-ons, let me make a really complex project, let me have 3 expansions ready to go at launch so that I can put all those out. We did this, we kind of walked up that hill or pushed that boulder up the hill for many years, and recently we decided to try a different way. So in our projects in the past, we have a board base game and an expansion and maybe some little add-on that was exclusive and a big stack of stretch goals. And we would do these games in the traditional way. And recently, we tried making projects that were just a base game, no stretch goals, and it delivers in inside of a year or around that time. Very quickly delivering, and then following up that delivery with the expansion and the extra content and etc. So, and what we found is that as much as people say I want more, um, it's really better to get them the base game as quickly as possible, and then let's talk about more. Like, why don't
Mm,
you play it first, and then we can talk about the more things that you want and all the expansions and all of the cool extra stuff. That worked for us really well in our bullet campaign, and it's worked. And so we did that same kind of simplified, let's get it to you real fast type of campaign for Dead by Daylight. And we found that it was quite successful. We didn't have a bunch of people rushing us saying, "Where's my stretch goals?" or "Where's my extra content?" or "Where's my exclusives?" The idea of getting it this year is such a novelty and such a cool thing, and it lifts the whole project. when you can deliver quickly.
The other thing I noticed is that you have kind of this, or you seem to have this newer tilt towards a simplicity of rewards. Is that just kind of something I've noticed more in these recent projects, or is that been, just something that I guess is random?
We learned a lot of lessons. We had two really big campaigns, BattleCon Unleashed and Millennium Blades Collusion. And these were based on two of our big lines, BattleCon and Millennium Blades. And in these, we did a big collector's box. We reprinted all of the different games throughout the years. We did a bunch of add ons and extras. We let you, kind of create your own customized pledges. And there were tons of exclusives. And when there were stretch goals every like $10,000, which was quite wild. And both of these projects were very difficult for us. We had to work extremely hard for relative to the amount of money that we made,
Mm,
and the projects were very expensive. They were expensive logistically, they were expensive in terms of art and design. They took way longer than we expected, and we had to do a ton of extra customer service and quality control because press didn't always understand what we were working because the projects were so complex.
mhm, mhm,
And all of those factors together really opened our eyes to the damage we were doing to ourselves by overextending on these projects, by offering too much. And what we also saw in terms of the fans who were buying these was that they were confused by the line. We were putting together so much stuff that it was difficult for people to actually follow. So we really did. We toned everything down. We tried to make our rewards very simple. There's a base tier and an all in tier. And that's it. And that's really all that that's all that you need is to make a Kickstarter special is some kind of deluxified or upgraded product that is going to be difficult to find or more expensive to find or not available elsewhere. And you're covering your bases.
Yeah, so I mean, one thing there I think that's really important is that sometimes you're trying to do too much for the fans, right? You're trying to do too many things. You're trying to really deliver an epic experience. And the hard thing about that is you make it complicated, right? So it sounds to
Yeah.
me like kind of what you're saying is that you guys were trying to do so much for the actual customers that it was kind of eating away a little bit about your ability to not only deliver on that, but also to for them to understand, right? All that value.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. And it's not just if you have problems that it's bad, but even if you successfully deliver all of this stuff, it can be troublesome. I've pulled out some of the CMON Kickstarters. I backed a bunch of those and Steam Forged games, and you get this gigantic box that's bigger than I am. And it's stacked floor to ceiling with games, and it's too big to actually play.
Yeah.
5 expansions are great if I've been playing a game regularly for 5 years. But, if it's my first engagement with a game, I really want a smaller box that I can open up and learn, and then I choose to grow it later. And so I
Mm,
think that the front loading of all this extra content and all this extra stuff is is not healthy
detrimental.
for
Yeah.
players. Yeah, it doesn't deliver a great experience as a consumer. It looks great when you're looking at this project and it gets you excited, but when you have it in your hands, you can't start. It's like a puzzle with too many pieces.
Yeah, it's almost like too overwhelming and it's not really where you can appreciate, right, the entire experience as much.
Yeah. So I think that as that to deliver the best experience for players, we actually want to do less. Less is more. Make the core game experience and make it really, really excellent and not overwhelm, and then let people decide for themselves that they want more.
For people who come to Dead by Daylight or your other projects and they're like, "Man, there are like no early birds that I see here," right? Do you ever get that kind of pushback like, "Hey, I thought you were doing a campaign. I thought there was gonna be like a deal or something like that." Or do you just kind of come up front and be like, "This is special. This is just for you guys and this is our best price?"
That's been our approach on these games. Typically what we want to give you some reason to back now, right? You can't just say, well, here's the game at MSRP, come and get it, but I want you to pay early because it's Kickstarter, right? Like that's not a great feeling. But just saying that this is a special deal, like for Dead by Daylight, the board game, we have a collector's edition, and it's $99 on the Kickstarter. It's 129 MSRP, and we're printing it in limited quantity.
Mm.
So, and it's not available in stores. So getting back in the Kickstarter is not the only way to get it, but it's the only way to guarantee it. And it's the only way to guarantee it at this price for sure.
Hmm.
So just having that, just having this is a special deal is enough. It doesn't have to be, oh, well, you can't get this thing ever anywhere else. If the value proposition is right, people will buy. And if it's not, then they won't. And,
Well
like
said. Yeah.
having all this extra FOMO stuff, just, I don't like it. I don't like to gate board game content. And I think that
Hmm.
again, it's bad for the longevity of the game. I don't build a game just for Kickstarter. I build a game for Kickstarter and the next 5 years. And I
Makes
plan
a
to
lot of
do
sense.
reprints and I plan to keep that game in stores. And so I don't want to gate content because once you gate content, you're cannibalizing your retail release. If I say you
So,
can never ever play this character except on Kickstarter, there's a lot of people who just won't start the game because they know they
mhm.
can never own it all. Even if they don't plan to buy it all right up front, they'll know that it's always going to be incomplete for them. And that's an immediate deal breaker.
So you've obviously, been at this for a while, and I'm sure you have a lot of memories that kind of fall into this category. But as a creator, as someone who's bringing new work into the world, organizing a whole team of people, right, and this not always being something that you were doing, do you have a experience or a memory that you feel like has been really special in your career as a game developer or as a person putting together games? Do you feel like there are any moments that have been really special, just kind of like crystallized, like, wow, this is exactly why I went down this path?
I would say I have a lot of moments like that. Probably too many to even pick one and talk about. As a leader of a team, it's really important to celebrate your team members and to make them feel that they've earned their success, or rather, I would say to let them know that they've earned their success because they have. They deserve that. And we do one of the ways we celebrate our team is we have retreats once a year in the past, and we're trying to scale up to twice a year. We all get together and we buy a venue offsite somewhere for a week, like a
Mm,
cabin in the woods or on the
that sounds
mountaintop
dope.
or
Yeah.
wherever. Yeah. And we all just hang out there and we cook for each other and we do movie nights and we play test all of the games that we're considering for the next year, and we have just this incredible team bonding experience together. And that, I think, is it. Like every one of those is so memorable and so special that it's hard for me to pick any one. But I'd say that that's really what excites me in this industry is getting a chance to give something back to the team that makes all this possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing to add to that is it's so rare you see people outside of their kind of work scenario or their work context to be able to connect with people and like bond with people without that pressure. It's just so awesome. And then
Mhm.
I think you also understand each other, right? So much more. Is that something that you've always known how to do, or did you read about that, or how did you discover that?
When we had these really difficult projects. Like I said, BattleCon Unleashed and Millennium Blades Collusion that were really crunching our team, and we were really kind of understaffed. I don't think we had all the resources, and we all had to pull a lot of hard work, and it was really stressful. And in the midst of that, I said we've got to do something to raise morale, to remind people that this is supposed to be a fun career, right? And
Yeah.
so it kind of came of that. I think that making our team feel special is something that requires a lot of work, and it's not always the top priority as a business person. You're always thinking about the bottom line and you're always trying to make sure that everybody can keep their house or their apartment, right? That's like your
Mm.
primary responsibility. But secondary, you have to address the everyone's human nature and the morale of a team. So yeah, I think it's something that we've learned intuitively, but it's something we really celebrate in this company is our fellowship with each other and our ability to preserve that enjoyment of the hobby, that it's not just work for us.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's obviously a huge thing, and the fact that you can do that and you can take the time to pause, right? I also think it says a lot about your values as a company. And a lot of the times, like if you learn a magic trick, right, and you're trying to become a magician, it can kind of suck the life out of that profession a little bit, right? But it sounds like you've been able to balance that, which is like understanding the mechanics of the game, but not getting lost so much in it that you kind of lose your enjoyment of playing, right?
Yes, it's definitely true. Burnout is real. And a lot of us say if you want to really despise a game, just make it. and and it'll happen. But that hasn't been a problem for us in recent years. Like we sit down and like we've got the Dead by Daylight board game here. Like we play it every day that we show up in the office together. we get together and we have a team lunch and we'll play Dead by Daylight because we love the game still a year later. And it's the same for our other projects like Exceed, for like Bullet. We get together with friends, and these are the games that our friends want to play. And that's why we
Mhm.
made them. We made them because our friends liked them. That's how we picked these projects to move forward with. So,
Love it.
so we have a lot of fun with it. And I think that is the real magic of a career in board games is holding on to that love of the project.
Awesome. So I just have a couple more questions for you. One of them is just kind of the common concern I tend to see with beginning creators. And they're always like, Sal, I really want to do this game. I really want to produce this, but I'm just so nervous about reaching out to artists, or I'm so nervous about reaching out to people to work with. I don't even know how to assemble a team. When people kind of come to you with that attitude or with that thought process, what do you say to them? And do you think it's possible for a beginning creator to assemble a small team to help them get a game off the ground?
Absolutely. But I would say that a lot of creators approach the problem as artist first and as a business second. And when you're assembling a team, you need to approach it as a business first, as a financial endeavor. What are my resources and what are the talents that I need? And how do I allocate those resources to bring these talents on board? If you've got $1,000 to cover art, or if you've got $200 to cover art, or if all you can do is promise percents, you need to know that in advance before you approach people, right? You need to say, well, these are the resources I have. I can put this much towards art. I can put this much towards development. And when you approach an artist, be upfront about it. I've got this much money. I've got this much time, and this is what I need. Can you help me? And if they need more than you're willing to offer, then you just have to be ready to walk away, or you have to be ready to compromise or to dig deeper in your own pockets. But I would say that approaching it as a structured endeavor and not as an artist, but as an entrepreneur is the important thing when building a team.
The other quick question I had for you was this idea of reaching audiences. It seems like you've been very successful with that approach. What are your thoughts on getting started with your trying to build your own audience, right, for the game and trying to kind of build that from scratch versus a beginner trying to go after an existing audience and maybe create a game for that or work with that audience in some way?
Yeah. So if you want to make a game that appeals to a certain type of person, say you're building a game that's going to target everybody who loves Mario. If that's the appeal, then you need to get immersed in that culture. You need to go and play Mario Brothers a lot. Then you need to go onto the groups on Reddit and Facebook and talk about Mario Brothers and figure out what the magic of this brand is and where these people are talking and what they're talking about, and then decide what can I build that's going to contribute to this existing culture, right?
Mhm.
So with Dead by Daylight, we were not so much building a game and inviting the fans in. We were building a game for the fan, and we hoped they would invite us in to share our project with them.
That's a really cool quote. Yeah. That's Instagrammable, man. That has to go out there. uh, my last question for you is on the crowdfunding front, which is obviously you have like I said before, a history right with this, and you have experience. Are there any new things that you're watching when it comes to Kickstarter? We've already discussed rewards, discussed a lot. Are there any new trends or any things that you're watching with Kickstarter that you feel like the audience should be informed about?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, I really think that simplification is the unsung hero of Kickstarter. A straightforward and simple campaign that delivers on a reasonable goal is going to serve you better in the long run. It's healthy for your company, it's healthy for your staff and your sanity, and it's just reasonable. So I think that we have these sophisticated tools like stretch goals and early birds and all this stuff, and some companies are really leaning into it like GameFound. But I think that people like new creators should really be aware of the option to not do those things,
Hmm.
and not just to not do them, but to overtly not do them.
Hmm.
Because you can't just not do a stretch goal. You have to say, "I'm not doing stretch goals so I can deliver this." You
Mm.
have to point out what are the
The
pros and cons
benefits.
and which
Yeah.
and why you made that choice.
Awesome. Love it.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
and I think that's very well said. I think you're definitely walking the walk when it comes to that one. So, where can people go to learn more about your existing games, also this recent campaign? Where can they go to learn more about some of your work?
Yeah, so our headquarters is at www.level99games.com. You can pick up or pre-order most of our games. Dead by Daylight will be available on a Pledge Manager post-project, and in about a week or so. Right now, it's the end of April, so the second week of May. And I also have a design blog on that site on level99games.com. So if you look in the top bar and you click on blogs, there's a design blog, and you can learn a bit more about my philosophy towards game design and also product design, which I think is a core part of game design that is often overlooked. How is this game also a product, and how does it live beyond the table? How does it live on store shelves? How does it live in the minds of your fans? Those are topics that we don't often talk about in this industry, but they're a big part of what the game is.
Very cool. Very cool. My final question for you, we can end the show on this note, is if you could speak directly to the listeners, and we can end with either a word of encouragement for someone out there who maybe is doing a gig they don't want to do, or even if they're a programmer, right, which is a great career, but they want to transition into gaming, or a final tip, or something you wish you knew, or something you picked up along the way, final quote, anything like that, we can end on that note.
Yeah, well, I think that everybody has the potential to create something really unique and special. And whatever career you're coming from, if you want to design something, see how you can bring your own specialization, your own special ability to it. I've seen graphic designers that become board game creators, and they make beautiful projects. I, as a programmer coming in, I've done a lot of like complex rules and detailed competitive games. And people that come in from different walks of life really make very unique games. And so I would say try and make something that only you can make, and you'll find success there.
Awesome. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it so much, and good luck with your upcoming launches.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. My name is Salvador Briggman, and on this show, we talk about crowdfunding, talk about Kickstarter, and today we spoke about not only how you can launch a $1 million Kickstarter campaign, but also how you can do it repeatably, how you can launch many different projects when it comes to doing a crowdfunding campaign. These guys, again, launched 24 projects on Kickstarter, which is insane. So if you're in the tabletop niche, you're trying to launch a physical product, you're trying to do anything when it comes to board games, card games, etc., or something even more creative in nature, you got to get on Kickstarter, man. This thing is like a no-brainer for you. I think this is one of the lowest hanging fruits when it comes to today, actually how to get funding, how to get traffic, how to build a crowd, how to get people to sample your product before you have all those expectations of delivering in 2 days, right? When you go on Amazon or you open up your Shopify store. This is really, to me, really what it says, which is kickstarting your brand. And this all starts with getting access to the right information. It's being willing to just change the way you think, developing new skills, new ways you can actually get attention, right? This is kind of thinking big, if you want to use that terminology. And the more that you get access to the training that's designed to help you through this process, the faster you are going to see results. It's not just about necessarily getting around the right people, which I do think is helpful. What I try to do with this show is try to let you listen to the people who are being successful. You know, it's not just also about taking action, because I've had so many people who do take action, but if they're using the wrong information, sometimes they're taking action in the wrong direction, right? So sometimes you have the wrong information about how to actually do one of these raises. And there are a lot of people out there, a lot of people in this industry who are sharing things that necessarily aren't proven to work. So I really believe it's about kind of investing in your education. It's about understanding what actually goes into a raise. It's about hearing directly from the source, which I try to do on this podcast. And also, I think one of the biggest things that you can do is just to be aware of the process. The more that you understand the process, the more confidence that you gain. The more that you understand what's around the next bend, the more excited you are to go on the adventure. And when you start to really hear from these success stories, you start to understand the process. You start to also get a sign of like how this could actually work, right? You start to see that vision clearly. It's like, wow, this could actually happen for me. This could be that moment where I finally not only take action, I line it up right with the right tactics and teachings and right strategy, but also I'm in a marketplace where literally anyone around the world can discover me. And this is when I make that career shifting change. This is when I hit it big. This is when I launch a whole new brand from scratch. If that sounds like something that you want to do, go and check out a free copy of my book, The Kickstarter Launch Formula. This is complete, easy guide to get you through a kind of in a paint by numbers fashion, what you got to do in order to have a campaign that gets results, the engine behind a powerful crowdfunding campaign. And really, if you think about it, what does that even mean, right? Like the engine, the system, if you will. It's about understanding what you got to do every step of the way so that you aren't intimidated going into a project. So you feel a tremendous surge of confidence, because when you know what you actually have to do and when you're working off of the right information, man, it just emboldens you. And it's almost like, gosh, I just got to do this thing now. So go and check out this link. Audible is doing a promo where you can get a free copy of the Kickstarter launch formula, which is a freaking awesome, literally no reason to go and check it out. Go and check out this link at crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. That link is crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio, crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. When you sign up for a version of Audible, you can also get a free copy of the Kickstarter launch formula. So you'll get a free copy of the Kickstarter launch formula. Go to this link, crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the podcast. Hopefully it inspired you. It got you taking a little bit of action. My name is Salvador. Give me a rating and review on iTunes, hopefully a positive one. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time.